Oh, nice.
All right, so basically, everybody have the agenda?
Yep.
What the hell?
Yes.
Call the meeting to order. And we'll take attendance. First, let me say, Jack is retired. We all know that. Everybody know that?
Nope.
Yes. Sorry to hear that he's no longer on Parks and Rec.
Big loss.
Mm.
We'll talk a little bit about that as we get into the meeting. So I'll take attendance. Emma,
Here.
Blair,
Here.
Tom is here. Okay, so this is being audio and visually recorded per the governor. And we'll approve the minutes from the last meeting. Has everybody got to read them?
Yes.
Okay, and want to welcome Michael Corzier, the new member. Welcome. Are you on, Michael?
I am, thank you.
Terrific. Thanks for joining us. And you want to say something a little bit about yourself? How you got pulled into this?
Well, I think as with many people, we've had a background in recreation and as a superintendent of schools, intimately involved in town budget and in the service of students. So I've been a coach, referee, athlete throughout my life and involved in recreation for children. So it's a passion. And when Libby strong-armed me, I said yes.
Terrific. Well, it's a great addition. And with your background, I'm excited about it. I'm sure, speaking for everybody else, they are as well. So thanks for stepping up. Thank you for
Thank you.
stepping up. We need all the expertise that we can get, we got on our plate. Okay, so we approved the minutes from the last meetings, December 17th, 28th, and March 11th. Someone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes.
And I guess I've got to second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Minutes approved. Okay, Janet, you ready to go, Janet?
I am, thank you.
Go right ahead.
I wanted to come before the Parks and Rec Commission before I went to the Select Board with what we're thinking about the Main Street activities for July 4th. At this point, we are disinclined to crowd Main Street and have the water fight and all those activities because of the issue of social distancing, even with vaccinations going on. But we do want to offer something this year. Traditionally, we've had a concert on the eve of the day that we do the Main Street activities at Children's Beach. We want to continue that. And we thought that a nice addition this year might be to have a children's concert in the morning of July 3rd. We don't generally, when July 4th falls on a Sunday, we move the events to July 3rd. So that would be what we are proposing to do at this point. We'd probably buy some little flags or something and hand them out to whoever participated at the children's event and maybe even in the evening concert as well. So I would just like some of your feedback on that idea.
Blair, do you have an opinion?
Sorry, I'm navigating this iPhone issue here. Apologies. Yeah, thank you, Janet. I think that's good info on that. And obviously, you have to kind of pivot with the way things are. So what would be could you just go over kind of like the schedule for that?
Yeah, I don't know if we've set a time yet. David's looking into some bands right now. You want to talk about those concerts, David, on the July for the independent?
My thinking would be to have several musicians play in the morning who are children friendly. This would be probably in the 10 to noon hour or 11 to noon. And I know that I've already got somebody booked for that morning so far. And I can get probably a couple other children-oriented musicians. And, you know, they would play, if it's like two groups, probably each would play for an hour. And then, you know, the thing is that it would be people on the green that would be distant, you know, well, 6 foot distance from each other. And it will be more, you know, better to control that. And so, you know, it would be kind of very, very patriotic, kind of 4th of July music, and also, you know, just kind of good, happy, you know, good time to, you know, celebrate the holiday.
And the evening one?
I'm sorry, and then the evening would be, I'm gonna try to see if I can get the Music Center Jazz Band again. They've always played in the past from 6 to 7. And that's usually run by Nigel Goss. So we hope to have them booked. So that's the plan for the music there.
Nice. Sharing. Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. Obviously, you know, you guys have done a good job with everything, and you know, whatever the rules are at that point in time. That's awesome. I think it's nice to have some semblance of normal, especially as, you know, people are getting vaccinated and whatnot. And that's
Emma?
I'm going to refrain from speaking and voting on this matter.
Okay. Michael?
I think I would agree with Blair. I think we're just going to have to continue to monitor things very closely, have something set up, and pivot if we have to pivot based on
Good idea.
the numbers.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, I concur. It's common sense approach. Now, do you need us to make a motion, Janet, or what would you like us to do?
I'd like to be able, when I go to the select board, to say that I reviewed it with you and that you endorse the idea.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion to endorse the idea?
So moved.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to endorse the children's concert at Children's on the 3rd of July.
Anyone to second it?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Great, thank
Looks
you.
like you're all set, Janet.
We want to talk about some thoughts that we're having for Children's Beach too, and I'm going to turn it right over to David.
Yeah, that's the next thing on the, okay, go ahead, David. Yeah.
Okay. Generally, we provide programming during the summer there. Last year, we didn't have anything except for the Sunday night concerts. And we still, this year, expect to hold the concerts. What we're going to do is to kind of modify the programming so that we're going to have 3 concerts a week. The traditional Sunday night concert at 6, another one on Monday night, and again, possibly on Thursday night around 6:30, kind of coincide with the dinner hour for the younger folks, so that they would play 3 times a week, so people can do something there at the beach for about an hour or so. We usually had some sort of pickup programming or pickup games in the mornings, Monday through Thursday, from about 9:30 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. We're gonna probably do that later in the summer, like July and August, depending on what's going on. What we would like to do is keep it to just one activity at a time, because usually it was set up for 2 or 3 things. And the one thing that was always set up was a volleyball net we're not going to do that this year because of the aerosol concerns. But we will have other smaller, like single participation activities, 1 or 2 people could do at a time with a distancing factor. And then at this point, we are not going to be planning to do the tie-dye clinic on Friday afternoons because there's always a crowd. There's always just a lot of kids moving around there. And then the other thing is the movies that we used to run on Friday nights. That is going to be held off for this year because of it's hard to control a crowd in the dark and see where they're moving around and being close to each other the wrong way. But we want to make sure that we're doing everything the right way this year and make sure that everybody's comfortable with the distancing issues and even vaccines and masks that will still make sure that people are trying to mask up and see where that goes. But we're going to try to start the Sunday night concerts on the first day of summer, which is I think the 20th of June. And if that doesn't happen, it will be the next Sunday on the 27th, and it will go to about early to mid-August. And we'll have those Sunday night concerts will be like the premier thing for the whole season.
And the other reason we're adding the other 2 concerts is an initiative from the Economic Task Force that's trying to find ways to bring families into town for the early dinner hour. And we're trying to work with restaurants to offer family-friendly meals. So that's why we're requesting a change in that scheduling to add more concerts during the week this summer.
So it sounds like you thought it through. Does anyone have any questions? Emma, are you going to speak to this one, Emma, or you want to recuse yourself?
I'm going to recuse again.
Okay. Michael,
I don't have any comments on this.
Blair,
Yeah, no comment. Obviously, just the fact that you guys were cognizant of what is and is not to be deemed as safe is good and forward thinking. And, I think that's something that a lot of organizations have had to do. So it's good to hear that the activities that you have decided to move forward with are the ones that you dub as being the safest.
Yeah, we'll start a little later and add a couple of socially distanced concerts to our summer programming this year. So again, I would ask for your endorsement for when I go to the select board with this change in schedule, that the Parks and Recs Commission likes our idea.
okay. Would anyone like to make a motion accepting this change in scheduling?
I'll make a motion to endorse this. I think it's the children's concert series. It's obviously thought out. If you could just share, once that schedule has kind of been detailed and comes together, if you could share that information with us as far as what's going on, just so that we're privy to those things, that would be great. But yeah, I would make a motion to endorse this.
Second, anyone would like to second it? Michael?
I think he needs to hear the second.
Michael, you're second.
Muted.
Sorry, you're
I'm
muted.
sorry, I was muted. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion accepted.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Diana?
Hi, thank you for having me on the agenda. I appreciate that. I run Nantucket Community Sailing, and Nantucket Race Week is our major fundraiser. And we have been trying for 2 years now to implement the concept of a Race Week Village, which is something that most other major regattas around the world do. And the reason we're doing it is twofold. One is that our Nantucket Race Week events that we have on land have traditionally been held at the 2 private yacht clubs, which are rather intimidating for anyone who's not a member to go into and enter. And so if you wanted to get a Race Week hat, or even sign up for a spectator boat or something, you would not feel welcome to do that. So we want to make Race Week, we're a community sailing organization. We want to make Race Week more open to the community and to bring the public in. The other concept for the Race Week Village is that one of the major ways in which we make money and raise funds is through corporate sponsors. And they are always looking for an opportunity to, oh, thank you. The corporate sponsors are looking for an opportunity to be able to showcase their binoculars or whatever it is they have to the Nantucket public. And so the Race Week Village is a very exciting concept for them to give them that kind of a showcase. And I recognize that given where we are in the pandemic, that we are not going to be able to do the kind of optimistic view of Race Week that we envisioned 2 years ago. We want it to be family friendly, fun. We want people to feel welcome. We want free activities. We want people to feel like they can come and go and that there'll be something for everybody. And so as part of that, I had talked several times with visitor services about partnering with them and leveraging some of their existing programming. And, you know, as you just heard Janet and David talking, that's going to be limited this year. So we might not be able to do that. And I've also had conversations with other nonprofits. Mary is here from the NHA, and she'll give you a little idea about a little talk about what they're thinking about. But we've got several other nonprofit partners that we would love to collaborate with if in fact that, you know, we're allowed to be able to do this, and 2, it doesn't encourage social distancing or too many people. And we think it would just be a great way to get people who are not necessarily sailors and who haven't been participants in Nantucket Race Week to get an idea of what's going on that busy week of the summer, and to get people to, you know, to involve the community with different activities. So the concept would be is that we would have Nantucket Race Week open for 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, Thursday, August 19th through Sunday, August 22nd. And it would have a series of activities. It would have for the sailors, they could come in and pick up their sailing instructions. They could check in for the regatta for that day. They could ask any questions they had about the race course or so on. We could have a crew finder for people who either want to get on a boat or don't want to get on a boat. So that would happen early in the morning. During the day, we would hope to have be able to have our merchandise, our Race Week merchandise available for sale that benefits Nantucket Community Sailing, and also to have our sponsors do some limited activation, showing their products or having a little pop-up shop there. Our initial concept was, and then thirdly, we would have hopefully opportunity for both Nantucket Community Sailing and other nonprofits to have things maybe going on out on the beach or out on the broader lawn. We of course recognize that everything has to be socially distanced. We recognize that we have to comply with all of the health guidelines. Marina from the town has been very helpful in working with the health department and giving us some of those guidelines. But you know, we don't know right now in April what August is going to look like. And given that this is a big thing for us to plan, it's better, I think, for us to be planning it right now, because we know how to scale back and we know how to cancel things, because that's what we all did last year. But if we don't plan it now, then there's no chance that come July that we can just whip it together at last minute, and as I'm sure you understand. And so if you look at the next chart, I'll give you kind of a very simple view of what we envision as the layout. Our initial concept when we talked with visitor services 2 years ago was to have a single large tent and to have everybody under a single tent, and to kind of keep it all contained that way and leave plenty of room for all of the regular children's speech programming. But given the need to have social distancing, we thought that what might be more effective is to have a series of, I put 6 in here, of either 24-foot rounds or 10 by 10s, that would have the different functions separated. So if you were coming in for a race registration, for example, you might go to the first tent. If you were coming in to look at the binoculars that Swarovski Optic was showing, you might go to one of the 10 by 10 pop-ups. And if you wanted to buy merchandise, you might go to another 24-foot round. We could have the whole area roped in. We would probably use some cute nautical rope that would fit our theme. And we could have checkers at both the entrance and the exit areas with clickers to monitor how many people were coming and going. Of course, we have to, we could also have that sanitizing, stuff and extra mask and things such as that. So again, we would do everything we could to comply. And so I expect that as we get closer to August, our plans will evolve on this. And if we find that, the numbers of people are just not going to work for us, or that things get worse, God forbid, versus better, then we probably wouldn't do it at all. But what I would really like to do is to get your feedback and hopefully your support for the concept, because I'm happy to come back to you as we get closer toward August and as the reopening guidelines may or may not change as we get into the summer. So that's the quick summary of what we're trying to do.
Well, it sounds like you've considered all possibilities and thought through it, which is important these days. Blair, do you have any comments?
No, I would just, I agree with that same sentiment, that obviously, having it roped off. Would you have would one of those, the entrance exit, would that be one way in, one way out?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Okay.
So we would encourage people to basically go through every tent while they're there. And we want it to be, so that would be the best way to do it, is basically to try to make some kind of a path. And I am not, I'm not an expert in how to lay these out. In the tent people, based on where the sprinkler systems are and what the tent people say, we may arrange the tent slightly differently. But the idea is to keep everything contained within those boundaries, and to have the entrance and exit. That arrow kind of indicated that would be where you'd go in, and then I forgot to do the arrow on the other side, that you'd go out on the other side, so that would give people a path and would keep it from getting congested.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, that it's obviously, not having the one tent and splitting it up and having your staff on site. I see you listed that, and making sure that someone's constantly there monitoring. Obviously you have to, I think that it's, wise on your behalf to plan this out now, and then, be aware that potentially you may have to cancel depending on what happens. Because, if we've learned one thing through this whole situation, it's that, there's no such consistency. But yeah, I mean, I'm in support of this idea. It's wise that you've, put this together and spread things out. The other question I actually have is, in that green space, is that the public and partner activities? Would that be what would go on there?
Well, for example, if it was one of the days for, a concert on the stage, or if the puppet lady was doing Nan puppets and she was going to be doing something, that could be happening there. Maybe now would be an appropriate time, Mary, for you to describe what the NHA is thinking about doing, because that would kind of fit into that area as well.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Corzier from the Nantucket Historical Association. We have been working, we've commissioned a Mishoon, which is a Wampanoag Native American dugout canoe from Darius Coombs, who is the leader. He's the liaison with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. And so we want to bring it here. It's going to live on Nantucket, and our mission has been to really tell the story of the Native American peoples, as is with the Community Foundation on their walking tours. They want to expand that story. So since this was happening, we got wind that race week was a thing. And since this is water, it would fit right in. So our hope is to have an event where this canoe, dugout canoe, gets paddled into Children's Beach. And then we would have a selection of craft tables, 2 or 3 Native American craft tables. We do have a Native American musical group that was planning on coming, and some artifacts and things like that. And we would obviously comply. We could, like Diana has, is section off so that we monitor who comes and goes. And so our hope was to do an event 11 to 2. So after the racers leave, before they come back, it would be free to the community. It would be things for families to do, and also learn about the Wampanoag tradition on Nantucket. So, and it's all very much, we have a lot of, we have artifacts, dancers, and some actual tribesmen coming. So that's what we wanted to do. And if we could, possibly to get, have Darius take some kids out in the canoe. Just to kind of, just to get in it. If not, we can just bring it up on the beach and they can all see it. This canoe is made by the burning out of a tree. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Anyways, it'll be in the museum and they'll be here for the weekend. So this could slip right in between all the other events that are happening on that day. And we comply with everything that's required. We've been doing that all season, the whole time that we've been open from July on, and being able to successfully have children and parents and visitors into the museum. So we're sort of used to the routine. So that is our hope, and it would be great because it would be Community Foundation, Nantucket Community Sailing, and the Nantucket Historical Association. So
You mean Conservation Foundation? I think.
Conservation Foundation, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. So yes, not Community Foundation, although their funds would be nice. So anyways, that was what we are thinking, and depending on the requirements and things go on, again, just like Diana, we can plan and we can pull back and change. So
It's a great, sounds like a great thing. What I really like about it is the historic education for the community, and how you tying that in couldn't be better in my opinion. Does anyone else have any comments? Emma, would you like to make a comment?
No, I have no comment.
Michael?
I love the community on the water activities that you've put into it, Diana. I think that will be a big hit. I would imagine you've explored more partnerships than show up here. I was wondering about the harbor master, and might this be a way to bring in some appreciation for our lifeguards across the island? And obviously many of them are going to be busy on a day like that, but maybe that's an opportunity to weave the water theme in. And they were working at the high school on repairing a lifeboat. I don't know what's happened during the pandemic, and I've been away a little while now, but that's another thought that might be explored. And again, I'm sure you've already considered those.
We would love to have the harbor master and the Coast Guard involved, but we keep them very busy that week ourselves out on the water. But we would love to, we're also hoping to bring some of our little boats over, and even if we just set them up on the grass or set them up inside our tented area, we definitely want to show off some of our community sailing little boats. But I would love to have boats in the water. I'd love to be able to take people for rides. And so if we can do that without interfering with the public swim area, which we can from the little dock there, I think it could work out really nicely. And it would allow people to see some of the harbor masters and the Coast Guard's equipment as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. Would somebody like to make a motion? Or would you like a particular motion to be made, to put it that way?
I would
Marina,
like. Oh,
Marina, do you have any comment on? Hi, everyone. So you can endorse the concept of that event and we continue to review. So we can issue special event permit. It's still subject to review by all other town departments. Like any kind of water activities have to be reviewed by the harbor master office. In the past, sometimes they want to see water activities before lifeguards start on the beach. Sometimes they ask to have it between 8 and 10, but I would say it would be harbor master's decision about water activities. So you just can approve, support the concept, and we continue working with Diana and Mary from NHA on that idea. As long as we can move forward, as long as health department can support it and all the protocols in place, we can continue reviewing that concept of the event.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion supporting this concept to move forward as long as it's in compliance with the Department of Health of Nantucket, something to that effect?
I will make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Emma?
I'm refraining from this
I'm
one.
sorry. Michael, obviously. Okay, the ayes have it. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the next is the Jetties Beach tennis programming. The genesis for this item is, as you know, we've been discussing what we would do with the tennis club down at Jetties Beach if the time comes when we take it back, Parks and Rec takes it back and it's programmed by community centers, community schools rather. And Tina is a former professional tennis player that lives on Nantucket. Thankfully, we have her. And she also runs a pro shop, and she thought there would be a good opportunity to maybe express some of her ideas. And I think it's a good idea that we hear a little bit from her and Blair. She also has some input on the programming itself. So Tina, with no further ado, why don't you make a very quick introduction and share your thoughts with us? Did we lose her? I know she was walking her dog.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Oh, so sorry, it was muted. I have lived on Nantucket and owned the pro shop since about 2004, involved in tennis for close to 40 years, coaching and playing and all of that. I was contacted by Cheryl Emery, and she let me know that you guys were thinking about taking over the tennis courts, and that you may need a little input on how to run a pro shop and maybe get the tennis program, change it up a little bit. And I'm just here to help. So if you need any input on what to do with your pro shop, how to get it going, whether or not you're going to do any stringing and have product and things like that, I can help you with that. Blair and I have worked together in the past on the tennis programs, and I'm here for that. So anything you need in the way of tennis and pickle and all of that, I'm just right up the street. I just moved over to Whalers Lane, right behind the Whaling Museum. So I'm very close by.
Well, that's
And that's
terrific.
it.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Good to have you as an asset in the community. And as we get closer to tennis season, which is not that far away.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very busy, like last year, but really busy.
Yeah, because I understand the private clubs aren't accepting anybody other than members. So
I'm hearing different stories from different clubs. So we'll see. It all depends on each club and what's happening with the virus. But you know, I'm also, not only do I work with the private clubs, but I work with all of the private housing communities like Naushop and Nashaquisset and a few other places on the island, and private homes and things like that. So, and even helping with supplying tennis instructors for the Jetties tennis program and, you know, things like that I can help you with.
well, that's terrific. And I think if the time comes when we do take back the tennis club down there, the building itself, we'll everybody will have to have important input onto how it's redesigned and ultimately used. So
Yeah,
I'm glad Cheryl sent you our way. And as we get further down the road, we'll certainly reach out to you.
great.
Does anyone have any questions of Tina?
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate
Oh,
you on. And I'd like to report that my paddle racket has got some mileage on it.
That's good.
I'm playing quite a bit. So Tina's got all the goods if anyone's looking to get into paddle. It's been a fun hobby.
And pickle, I just started playing pickle. I love it.
Yep. That's awesome. Thank you, Tina.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to see everybody.
Thank you for coming.
Tom, it's Mike Cosworth. I didn't really have a question for Tina, but I don't know how far along the idea of the tennis going back to towns or Park and Rec, how far along that decision is.
Well, that's a good question because we don't either, but we know that it's under consideration by Libby. Obviously it's being used for other purposes now, and that area generally is a staging area for all of the construction that's going on. So the timing may be later rather than sooner, but it's a concept that, I know the tennis community on Nantucket really would like to get that back if they can. And I know the town itself is making a good faith effort in doing that analysis. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Whether it happens this year or next year, I'm not sure, but it's something that we have to follow up on.
May I just add, and you may already know this, but for the edification of everybody else, the school is in the process of developing courts on the school site. I'm not sure if that has been shared previously.
Yes, it has been. And the question that came up is, to what extent will the community at large have access to those courts? I assume, but we're not confirmed that they will, but to what degree has not yet been determined. So the other point that came up is the courts at Jetties are something that the summer folks use when they go to the beach, et cetera. So we may end up with two facilities. And at some point, obviously, would be great to make the programming between the two facilities seamless, at least for the kids. Given the fact that the high school kids are playing down at Jetties, and ideally they would have their own courts at the high school. That would be the preference. But that too has to be worked out and discussed.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that you were in the loop.
Well, yeah, we're aware of it. We're not directly involved in the planning, but I think the plan is to put 5 or 6 courts up at the high school, which they should do because, most high schools you go to have at least 6 courts. And it's just a question of how much the community, both the summer folks and the year-round folks, will have access to those courts. And I'm sure due consideration will be given to that notion, hopefully.
Okay.
I have a question for Blair. Okay. Can you speak to how the courts at Jetties operate currently? Because I do not know. Like, are they open to the public and is it seasonal, and who oversees that?
Yeah, so right now, we do an annual MOU, memorandum of understanding with the town, and that's part of our recreation and the fields. Jetties tennis is something that it was actually probably the start of it. So the community school before I was on board ran the tennis programming at Jetties before the fields even became thrown into that MOU. So it's a seasonal operation. It's open to the public. Right now, starting April 26th, so a couple weeks, the high school team will go out there. They'll use it for a couple hours a day, and they have their matches there. So because you have to have part of the requirement is hard courts for the matches. So they use that. And then our operations begin Memorial Day. And then we'll wrap up typically around Columbus Day. And we do youth clinics, private lessons. We'll bring on some instructors. And then we'll do some adult play as well. So that is a part of the recreation MOU. We post all of our stuff on jettiestenis.com. And yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm maybe a little lost. I might have missed it at a previous meeting, but what is the kind of concern or whatever we're looking about now? Does it have to do with the building there?
Well, going back to Michael's concern, and actually it's a very good point. The building at one point was part of Parks and Recs. So in other words, you'd go down there, you'd go into the building and there'd be a little pro shop, a little area for the kids to sit, and there would be restrooms indoor rather than the current porta potty. But because of just a general need for space, another department of the city took that over. Now the opportunity has come up where that building is going to free up, and ideally, at least from my perspective as a tennis player and fan, and the tennis community on Nantucket generally, it would be nice to have that building revert back to the community schools and back into the tennis community per se. So in other words, convert it back to what its original purpose was. Now, whether it happens, and I think that's under consideration. And so we just want to be prepared that when that happens, we have a plan for opening up a pro shop, which will be a revenue generator, and just making sure that the place is clean and appropriate for the general public and the kids.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no. So does anyone have any other comments about that before we move on to the next item? Okay. DPW Director Mark Vogt, is he here tonight?
I am. Just a slight correction. So it's Mark Voigt. I'm the Deputy Director, one of the two.
I apologize for butchering your name.
Yeah, no problem. You get a couple of tries, always right. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I just here simply for an announcement that we have begun the initial process of looking at the next phase of the Park and Recs master plan, which I think some of you were involved with. I was not as directly involved with the master plan, but part of that master plan, if you're familiar with it, or if you're not, there was the overall broad plan that's in place. It's available on the town's website. And to follow that up, there are areas identified within the plan. And the concession areas are a particular concern for us right now, because as we are growing as a community, and you guys are referencing it and talking about the community school and the tennis courts, that there's things that are changing over time. Some of it's program related, some of it's we'll call it climate change, sea level rise, because all of our concessions are near the beaches, involve the beaches. So there's some dynamics that are changing, and we need to address those as we move into the future. So anyway, there's a lot of different things. We can go off on a lot of different tangents, but we wanted to let you know, as the Park and Rec Committee, that this is starting off. Sorry, my cat's all of a sudden become interested in this discussion. And we have retained Weston and Sampson, who worked on the initial Park and Rec master plan. So that's a nice segue for them to stay involved and retain that information that they so well produced a document from, and are adept at filling out the rest of the pieces of it as we go to this next phase. There are many facets that can be addressed, but we think this is one of the most important ones to come up. So it's just an announcement for you guys to let you know that this is begun, and we are having internal meetings on a regular basis, and we will be reaching out to the Coastal Resiliency Committee, formerly, or not formally, but known as CRAC, and also to the historic committees, and there will be several others. We have the environmental with the Conservation Commission. So it will involve, again, Jetties will be the first step, and it will involve the concession, the activities that are around the area. And it's interesting to hear some of the discussion about the tennis courts, because we've paid attention to the school's planning efforts for tennis courts at the school, which I think is a great idea. And that may help us in that particular aspect of how that might be baked into or redesigned down at Jetties. It's a tough place to play tennis as a former tennis player myself. Wind is not your friend unless you're just that good at using it into your benefit. And that's a constant issue down at the courts, not only because of the wind, but with the wind screens, they just get ripped up like crazy, which Blair is very well versed in what's happened down there. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer what I can right now. It's very early in the process, so there's not a lot that I can tell you other than the planning part, because no decisions have been made, and I don't expect those to be made until we have a lot of information gathered, but it is the beginning of the process.
Well, thank you for that update. And I just want to go on record as saying that DPW, Rob, McNeil, and, Mark, and certainly Libby have done a terrific job with this project. I find it very exciting. I think you're going about it the right way. Through my work, I'm familiar with this process. And Nantucket should be reassured and feel good about the fact that guys like Rob and Mark are overseeing this. It's a very methodic process, and it's also very complicated. This is a big job. It's big job budget-wise. It covers the whole island. It covers all the important places that we love. And I just want to thank you for coming by tonight and, speaking to this, because, we on the commission, and certainly, Mark and Rob, and certainly Libby, as this project moves forward and becomes more visible, they're going to get a lot of questions. And the key to something like this is patience, because when you have something this complicated, and it is a complicated project, and I think we're just starting to see those complications, particularly around the environment and the erosion of the water. There's going to be changes, setbacks. So, just keep that in mind. And we have good people focused on it, so we have to support them any way we can and accommodate them. I know Blair and I have been talking about the different scheduling that might come up as a consequence of this project. So, just pass on our thanks, Mark. And this update was very helpful.
I'm glad to.
Anyone want to add anything else?
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And yeah, I agree. Terry Wysocki from All Court Fabrics. He loves us. I think he wants those court Jetties tennis. We are buying windscreens year after year.
So, Mark, the next, just by coincidence, the next agenda item is maintenance. I don't know if you have time to hang on for that. It's not going to, just be a short little discussion. It might be helpful if you listen into, what we've been talking about. And it does tie into the Sampson plan, which they've done a great job too. So do you want to hang around for a little bit?
Sure, I got a few minutes.
Okay. So the next item is maintenance, obviously. And what I think that came out of the Sampson plan was that they went around and compared what other communities have. And again, referencing the work I do, I think it's important, as it does everybody else. It's not unusual to look into the future. And so whatever we can do to support those maintenance suggestions as a commission, I don't think we need to review them tonight, but I would invite you all to go back and look at them. My preference is to take the most aggressive and detailed plan. I think they gave us 3 options. But a maintenance plan is only as good as the budget that's behind it. You cannot, in my experience, depend on volunteers to maintain parks. You have to have people, whether they work at DPW or some other agency, you have to have boots on the ground. People ask me if I could only have one thing for a Parks and Recreation Department, I would pick good maintenance people. And with that, you have to have a clear set of rules for the users. And those rules have to be enforced. So in other words, if the rule is no dogs allowed, no dogs are allowed. And that has to be enforced. So I know Blair has mentioned a few things that have happened down on the turf with regard to dogs. And I don't want to go into the details, but you can imagine what they are. So we just have to look after this investment. It's a $28 million investment. And what I'm trying to say is that we should start implementing a user plan and a maintenance plan as if this project was complete. And the reason I think that's important is you want to develop a culture on how these places are to be used so that when they are complete, there's no vandalism, et cetera. So if anyone wants to add to that or make comments, please share them.
Yeah, I had some things to ask Mark about the Jetties area. It's really great to hear that you guys are working on the master plan in that area again, especially with the sea level concerns there. I was just wondering, I know you're just at the beginning stages, but are you thinking of like constructing a new concession building or moving further back? And then, you mentioned with the, and thank you, Michael, for talking about the school tennis courts. I was not aware that those were going in. So any kind of updates like that is always great to hear. But I was wondering, is that thought there to be replacement courts that would be used by the students and by the community, and maybe where the courts are at Jetties would be repurposed for concessions, or is that still kind of totally up in the air?
Well, those are all good questions. Because we're so early in the process, again, there's really been no decisions that have been made. Everything's on the table, but I think when you first started talking about it, you can see and anticipate some of the issues we're going to have to deal with. So I would guess as a plan, and it doesn't mean we're actively having to do this, but as a plan for when the opportunities arise, or as we plan something, plan's only as good as the budget. You sort of heard earlier about as far as maintenance. So these things long-term issues will help us inform us about what type of budget we're looking for to make these things happen. So the tennis courts are in dire need of some attention. The fencing is corroded. The courts themselves, the substrate is not in good shape. We had a really tough time a few years ago due to the freeze and thaw cycle with sand. Just as a real quick description, with the sand, and as soon as you develop a crack, but also with the sand that's down there, the water gets underneath those are asphalt courts, gets underneath the asphalt, and then you get the heave, and all of a sudden, instead of just a crack that's opening, now you have a different level, so it's popped it up as well. So that's a real challenge, try to keep those courts going. So at some point, it doesn't make sense to keep pouring money into repair until you get a better, base underneath of that. And again, with the fencing.
I agree with you, Mark. To be honest with you, I've been involved with building tennis facilities, and I'm a big tennis fan. If I were to build tennis courts on Nantucket, I would not build them there. I might put 2 courts down there so people could use them for the summer who might go to the beach. But for the purpose I think the fact that it's sand down there, you're never going to get a good court down there. You're going to be, as you said, putting good money after bad. So, Michael mentioned the courts at the high school. I'm thinking long-term here, depending on the access to those, certainly more for the community than anybody else. And then maybe instead of, I don't know what that plan involves, but some sort of area where, the community can access courts, but, we've been kicking around some ideas, and tonight's probably not the night to do it since we only got 5 minutes left, but your point is well taken. I would not sink a whole bunch of money into those courts unless it was carefully thought out, because there are other options I think you should explore. But in the short term, if we could get the clubhouse back for a year or two, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think those things are available as options. The timing is critical. The courts can only last so long. I don't see sorry, someone's walking by our window. I don't see all these things happening at once, and so it's going to be hard to make them all work in the same time period, because these are long-term plans, and those courts are a short-term issue as far as their usable life.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraged to hear the high school may be doing something that could really take the pressure off in a more appropriate area, a more dependably used area, because again, the wind is an issue. But when it's nice down there at the Jetties, as you know, and most of you know, it's a great spot to play tennis. But if you're trying to do it in April, May, or even March, or even in later months of the year, it's really a challenge. So, but that shouldn't rule out any kind of use. So I think you're on the same track I am. That maybe there's a rethinking and better application of how they're going to be used.
Well, the last comment I'll make, and I'm really glad you came tonight, is that maybe you could jump in on these meetings once a quarter, once a month. I mean, obviously you're welcome anytime, and we're happy to help at least I'm speaking for myself, but I think the other members will probably agree. We're happy to help formulate maintenance and security plans any way we can, and lobby for whatever funds you need to make sure it works properly. Because, I think we've all seen projects where, regardless of where you might have come from or live now, where a town or a city spends a lot of money on a nice project, particularly in the sports area, and it looks nice for 6 months, but then a year later, it's all messed up because there wasn't appropriate security and maintenance budget. So I know my other members, I bring it up every meeting, and I will, because it is so important. And we're talking about a $28 million investment here. So, and I know we all agree, it's just a matter of getting the rubber to meet the road on getting the funding and the full-time equivalent people with rates.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, my vision is more focused on what the movement is in terms of any kind of changes. The master plan seemed to kind of move some things around, move some fields around. And if you're looking at some more developments at Jetties, whether that's going to be moving around versus just the regular day-to-day and maintenance, I think that, we can always make suggestions on the maintenance to the DPW, but in terms of the planning of what things will look like and where they'll go, I think is where I'd love to have us be able to hear how that is progressing. And if, if we need to foster reaching out to the community on that as well, that we could help out with that.
Yeah, so we certainly are very pro maintenance with the group that we have now at the DPW. That's been one of my focuses for the last 5 years, and I'm just able to really look at some preventative maintenance programs that have not up to this point been able to implement. We've just, it's just been that many issues to try and get them to the point where we can depend on them better. And then you can start doing your preventative maintenance to look at these things, to approach them before they fail. And we've got a lot of failures of things, components right now. We still have them, but I think we have some breathing room. but that would certainly be a component of the master plan, should be the component of the master plan, and should be a component of these area plans that we're talking about. And, but no decisions, like I said, have been made as far as relocation. I think relocation and a reconfigurement of the Jetties area, you'll probably see some concepts because there are a lot of important factors. You wouldn't want to sink a lot of money into, let's just say, for the concession or even the tennis courts, unless there's a more viable opportunity or viable basis for saying we're going to put this much money there, and it will withstand some storm storm surge, sea level rise in general, and just it's a marine environment down there. This is how we've been looking at, and it goes all the way to the playgrounds. What type of equipment are we installing? It's been one of my emphasis for our crew to pay attention to, is that we're not going to take the same approach that we've taken all these years with installing the same thing. We've got just basic components that is off the shelf, and not enough thought was put into it as far as what kind of environment is going into it. We can't put the same things in this environment that you can put somewhere else. So off the shelf, cheapest sort of approach, it doesn't work, because we're spending a lot of time on our basically on work hours that we could easily upgrade the material and save ourselves a lot of the maintenance cost and labor. So it's an ongoing process, and then I don't want to dodge any questions, but I don't have a lot of answers. I have concepts, and those are our concepts, will be our concepts moving forward, and hopefully baked into this plan. And then we'll have more discussions about the actual concepts and feasibilities and designs that you might consider as we move forward and get more information about those.
Mark, I would like to make a request that when you do have like public information centers about this, if you could let me know and I could get the word out to the Parks and Rec Commission, just so you don't have to come back and repeat everything that's already been presented. If that would be beneficial.
I think you definitely will be aware or be notified. So we don't want to have to repeat those efforts and steps either. We want as much of this information to be out there for everybody. And so that's why we're here. I'm here tonight to try and let you know that this is where we're starting on this facet, and we'll see it through to its completion.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Mark. And, we can talk about this another time. I know we're finishing up, but sometimes I think I get a little confused of like what our kind of jurisdiction is as a committee, where, I know we could make recommendations to the select board, but in terms of the master plan, if you kind of report to us, or if we would come up with ideas and suggest them to you. But that's something we can always go over at a later time.
I'm confused about that a little bit myself. I don't know if anybody, I've gotten lots of different opinions about it, but I think the best way is just to move forward and find consensus. And, opinions are there to be heard and considered. I mean, we talk about opinions, but there's a lot of ideas out there. So, sometimes 3 or 4 ideas can be put together, and then you kind of get something. Sometimes 3 or 4 can work against each other, but, we just have to be adults about it and everybody wants to improve the situation. And, certainly things don't always happen the way I think they should go. So I think everybody keeps that in mind, and, we move forward to a better situation than what we have. And that's really the issue. The main issue is this better than what we're looking at now, or we have right now? And can we improve it for all the users as best we can?
Yeah, for sure. And I really like that you've included the Conservation Commission and the Coastal Resiliency. And, maybe at some point as these plans move along, we do like a joint meeting with them and kind of have all those ideas in the same space together.
Sure. So there's going to be a lot of competing issues. The Coastal Resiliency Committee will probably want that thing, all of this, say, why are we even putting it down there? Right. There's probably not going to be a great spot. So we have to say, well, what's the best spot? Maybe it's not the best spot for community school or something like that for different reasons. But, we have to find and make some concessions for for these issues, and just like I said, what does it want to be? There's sometimes with all of this, all these competing issues, that helps bring out what it really wants to be, as opposed to a driving force that a singular driving force for somebody else. And so there's not too many options left over when you consider sea level rise and resiliency and historic nature of the building and in the area it's in. So we'll see. It's always, these are interesting processes, but personally, I like to think big because it's an opportunity. And so sometimes that's shocking, but then when you look at it, go, well, this is a once in a generation opportunity to, get this done right. So.
All right. Well, it's 5 after 5, and so does anyone have any other comments or make a motion to adjourn?
Michael, did you want to add something earlier?
No, I was just going to talk about the courts, but I think we've covered enough, and I don't speak for the schools anymore, so I try to keep that in mind. Maybe next
Would
meeting.
somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks for coming, Mike. Nice
My
to see you.
pleasure. Thank you for including me.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mike. See
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for joining, Michael. Thank you for joining.
And thanks, Marina and Mark, for being here tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.